Before I start, I would like to send a big mahalo to our presenting sponsor, Hawaiian Airlines, and our supporting sponsors, Alexander and Baldwin, thank you, Chris, Alohilani Resort, Waikiki Beach, Hawaii Crop Improvement Association, Honolulu Magazine and Honolulu Family, Kamehameha Schools, I think Kauai is here, Lend-Lease, Mahipono, the State of Hawaii, and the Ulupono Initiative. Tonight, you will have the opportunity to hear from leaders in food innovation, sustainability, and climate change. Our keynote speaker, Lou Cooperhouse, is the CEO of BlueNalu and joins us for his second keynote. For those of you who have been coming to Eat, Think, Drink for a while, you may remember Lou from our third episode called Show Me the Green, when he was the CEO of Rutgers Innovation Center. In 2017, Lou spoke about the tremendous opportunities on the horizon with alternative protein products and focused particularly on one category called cellular aquaculture, which he believed to be the next big thing in food innovation. During that Eat, Think, Drink event, and I'm sure he'll mention this, but he was recruited to become the CEO of BlueNalu. So it goes to show you, you never know where your next opportunity lies. Despite being based in San Diego, Lou and his investor named the company BlueNalu. Of course, Nalu in Hawaiian means wave, which represents the company's birthplace and a new wave of thinking and innovation. BlueNalu also recently received the second largest seed round fundraising globally in this new category of cell-based foods. After Lou's keynote, Greg Murphy, BlueNalu's Director of Corporate Development and Strategic Partnerships, will unveil a collaborative initiative to promote health, ocean health, animal welfare, human health, and the economic benefits of sustainable seafood. Greg will also moderate a panel on food innovation, sustainability, and climate change. The panel will feature Rachel Rail, Waste Division Manager at Sustainable Coastlines, Anthony Alto of Green Island Films, Colin Hazama, Executive Chef at the Royal Hawaiian. And now, without further ado, please join me in welcoming our keynote speaker, Lou Cooperhouse.
Thank you, Denise, and aloha, everybody. So exciting to be back, and as Denise mentioned, I had the great honor of being here actually back in August of 2017 at the Show Me the Green program. And we're so excited. In the middle name of Eat, Think, Drink is Think. And my goal at that time was to really help inspire the audience to really think about some big opportunities that could be really relevant for Hawaii and could really lend to export and really look at some of the trends and technologies that were occurring around the world. And I got myself so excited in my presentation, I started a company myself. So you never know, as Denise said. And so as she mentioned in that particular presentation, one thing that I was really describing was consumers are changing. I imagine all of you are also seeing changes as you look around the marketplace and some of the things that you're now seeing on the shelf and some of the things that you're now thinking about. And my goal at the time was really, this is all of us. We're here every day. We're thinking differently about the food that we purchase, that we feed our families, we feed our loved ones, and also feed our guests. So food has become more than just about a product that we eat in our diet, but it's become more and more experiential. It's a message to yourself and what you believe in. It's a message to those that you love as well. So what we're seeing as people are reading labels, all generations, all ethnicities, what are they really looking at? What is it that they're looking at when they're reading these labels and they're so conscious about the foods? So some of the marketing experts say what they're really looking for is a message, something, an experience. And that experience might resonate with products that might be alternative protein, animal-free, foods that they feel they can trust because it comes from a local farmer or local fisherman, foods that represent sustainability or purpose, responsibility, inclusivity, ethics, justice, respect for the environment, respect for the world, products that represent transparency or authenticity, accessibility, community, or fair trade. So these are some of the language, some of the words. My own background in the food industry, my own story is I've been in the food industry for 35 years. So I've worked at Campbell Soup, I've worked at Conagra, I've worked at Nestle. I've always been involved with startups, and I've actually witnessed this whole evolution in the food industry for products that when I was developing foods over the years, that were a bit more self-centered. They were more about the food is convenient, the food is healthy for my family. I didn't really, all of us perhaps, didn't really think too much about the foods that we're necessarily eating. It was more about, let's just get through this meal and maybe watch TV or read the paper or talk as a family. But now food is really changing. Food is really something that means so much more, and we're here tonight to really talk about what is changing, particularly around life below water. So life below water we'll talk about is one of the UN Sustainable Development Goals, one of 17, but one that is so critical, particularly here in Hawaii. Here we are, the center of the Pacific Ocean, 2,500 miles from any landmass, where so much of our global supply chain of seafood comes from. Our goal tonight is to have Hawaii be the birthplace of a new movement that's really focused on sustainability and really thinking about ocean conservation and, again, life below water. So what we did at BlueNalu was one solution. I'm here today to maybe talk about what we did as a company, and then, as Denise mentioned, we're going to have a panel that's going to talk about what all of us can do individually or collectively to really make a difference in our oceans. So BlueNalu is doing something a little bit different. How many of you might be familiar with like the Impossible Burger, the Beyond Burger? Show of hands. So that's a lot of you. So that's a category that we call alternative protein. So alternative protein is all of us making an effort, as I mentioned on the last slide, to maybe reduce, become more flexitarian, reducitarian, maybe even a vegetarian or vegan over time, maybe in a gradual way, to make a difference and really look at recognizing that the animals on our planet are limited. We have a huge issue with climate change, deforestation, and what can we do to make a difference? So one way to do that is by enjoying meat products that aren't actually meat, but they're actually plant-based. So Impossible and a Beyond Burger, for example, are doing something that we've maybe had for 30 or 40 years, in our stores. We might all be familiar with products that, like the Boca Burger or Gardein or other products that we've been out there for a long time, but they didn't necessarily taste like a burger. So what's happened in the last year? We realized that the number one thing in my career in the food industry that consumers just can't give up on is taste. So we really want to not sacrifice on flavor and enjoy the products that we've always had. So Impossible and Beyond are really amazing because they're giving you a plant-based product without feeling like you've compromised on flavor. So it's really an awesome product. I think that the issue that's confounding this particular category is it may contain a lot of ingredients, may be highly processed, may even be genetically modified, but it does nonetheless help all of us feel like we're making a difference in our own way to reduce meat consumption on our planet. But there's another category of alternative protein, not just plant-based, but one that we call cell-based. So a lot of you may not have heard a person named Louise Brown. Anybody know that name? So Louise Brown was a name that all of us knew maybe 30 years ago. She was the first test tube baby born in the UK. And it was, here we are producing a human being in a different way. There was an awful lot of interesting publicity at that time, but you see how far we've come in the world of food since that time. So we can now make seafood products from fish cells. It's a crazy idea, but in 2013, a professor in the Netherlands, actually with funding from Google co-founder Sergey Brin, actually developed the first first cell-based hamburger. That dawned a whole new age of thinking that, oh my God, what if we can go full circle back to the animal without the animal? What if we could take a cell from a cow or a cell from a fish and grow it in really large volumes and actually manufacture a seafood product or a pork product or a beef product in a new way? How would that really change the world by helping us with our global supply chain for seafood, meat, poultry, pork, etc.? So that's what BlueNalu is all about. That was something that I talked about in the ETD event back just 2 years ago, and 2 years and a few months ago. So BlueNalu's mission is to be the global leader in this new category that we also call cellular aquaculture, providing consumers with great tasting seafood products, healthy for people, humane for sea life, and also sustainable for our planet. Making a product directly from fish cells, creating a third leg on our global supply chain, embracing wild-caught and farm-raised sustainable practices, but giving the world a new third solution of cell-based products that will ultimately support the health, sustainability, and biodiversity of our oceans. As Denise mentioned, we were very fortunate to receive a great deal of funding. It's the largest amount of funding globally at that time, and we're now about to announce in a short while the largest next round of funding, or A round, globally as well. So we're very fortunate to have 26 investors from 5 nations, US, UK, Israel, Luxembourg, and Hong Kong, that have participated in our earlier round. And our whole focus is to be a global solution. This slide demonstrates kind of seafood consumption around the world. As you can see on the left side, North America, and then Europe and Asia. Asia is clearly, eclipsing the world in seafood consumption, with up to 4 times the per capita consumption that we have here in North America. And other regions have less amount of seafood in their diets. But clearly, there's those 3 continents, North America, Europe, and also Asia, are really dominating the global demand for seafood. People love seafood. In fact, it's at an all-time high. In the latest UN data point, we're seeing the greatest amount of seafood consumption ever. So there's a huge demand for seafood that we all love. And in fact, you see on the bottom right, about 83% of net new growth in projected seafood consumption is actually going to come from Asia. As you see on the top right graph, if you can read that, it's actually about consumer choices. When asked consumers, are you eating more red meat or less, actually 30-some% are saying, I'm now eating less red meat. This is changing dramatically, or people are shifting from red meat towards seafood in their diets. So demand is high. That's a wonderful thing. Here's the problem. Supply is down. So globally, we know overfishing, illegal fishing, acidification, the effects of climate change, rising temperatures in the ocean, environmental pollutants, El Nino effects, all sorts of potential challenges to our oceans are dramatically reducing. It is a global problem that needs a solution. So there's no shortage of data points that talks about there's an absolute crisis in our oceans. What can we do about it? We can't continue to provide that much aquaculture to support the oceans. We can't continue to overfish the oceans either. So in addition to the increased demand and the reduced supply, the other issue that's represented here is that the supply that we're all consuming, there's increasing awareness about not just the issues of ocean health and climate change and viruses and pollutants, but also some of the labor practices that go on in this industry. In many cases can be illegal from certain countries. Some of the bycatch and habitat damage that comes from trawling and nets, dragging the floors. And of course, many consumers are also concerned about the inhumane slaughter that occurs with fish, just like they are with land animals. So there's a lot of issues out there for consumers who are thinking more and more about. So the first process when consumers make a change is it begins with thinking and awareness. They're also increasingly concerned about issues like pathogens or plastic pollutants, environmental pollutants that affects their own body. There's also a great deal of mislabeling in this industry, some cases inadvertent, some cases intentional. In fact, 83% of red snapper in a national survey on the mainland showed that it was actually mislabeled through DNA fingerprinting. And sometimes it might be misrepresented by a product that could, in fact, cause some harm. So there's a lot of issues around the supply, and the concern is what will happen in the next 10 years, in the next 20 years with this supply chain. The other issue is mercury. The FDA and EPA have a warning for women that are pregnant or breastfeeding that give you 3 options to really eliminate certain seafood from your diet or have 1 serving or no more than 2 to 3 servings per week. So we said to ourselves, what if there was a 4th bucket? What if there was a mercury-free solution? That could be possible if we could only manufacture seafood from the fish cells. And lastly, it's about food security. So nations around the world import a great deal of the seafood that their population consumes. And in fact, in America, 94% of the seafood that we consume as a nation is actually imported, according to the FDA. So what if we can, in fact, deal with a current situation where seafood might be flown maybe 7,000 miles from point of capture to point of consumption, with a 20% possible bycatch, with some loss in spoilage, it could be 10–20%. Then it goes to the restaurant and we have a 60% yield. What if that product was actually replaced with a 100% yielded product that was actually made more locally? So that would be a great game changer. So this slide is actually showing the continual increases in prices that we're seeing and the great variability in prices that we're seeing in the seafood industry today. So at the end of the day, BlueNalu is really about supporting the sustainability, health, and biodiversity of our oceans. We recognize, I'm not sure if all of us are aware, that 1 out of every 2 breaths that we take comes from oxygen that comes from the ocean, from the phytoplankton. The oceans are a primary regulator of global climate, an important sink for greenhouse gases. We need to maintain the biodiversity of our oceans. So BlueNalu is all about what looks like this big microbrewery. That's a hybrid of that and a food processing facility. This is a demonstration of a 150,000 square foot factory that we envision will be able to produce cell-based seafood. So in these large stainless steel tanks that you see here, these will be fish cells. So here you're seeing what could be 3 different lines. Could be mahi-mahi, Chilean sea bass, red snapper, all being produced concurrently in this large factory that we're quite excited can actually be produced if we could break ground on the next 5 years. So here's where we're at today as a company. We just started literally shortly after I spoke at this event 2 years ago. So in 2018 we started, and we had these various phases of growth. And that phase 5 is what that large-scale factory looks like. But right now we're actually making small samples of seafood, these fish portions, these medallions. Right now in our current product is yellowtail. So what we're doing is we're taking a sample, a cell that would come from, in this case, a satellite cell, a certain type of cell that's meant to really be a precursor to large growth. So there's a certain cell that would come from a juvenile fish that actually will grow if we help it along and coax it along to really large volumes. And that's exactly what we're doing. So we're taking natural muscle cells, fat cells, or connective tissue cells, growing them in large volumes, and actually making, this is actually an example of a yellowtail ceviche that we're actually making today. So we're isolating cells, we're growing them and making them stable without using any genetic engineering, and then making increasingly larger volumes of these medallions and ultimately fillets of seafood in a variety of different ways. And we could do this raw, cooked, or marinated in acidified brine like you might have in a ceviche, poke, or kimchi application. So what we're doing at BlueNalu is able to do this without genetic engineering in the most natural way possible, growing a broad array of fish species, and as you saw, detailed plans for large-scale manufacturing. As a company, we're really cognizant of the fact that we can actually displace the imports that come into this country. As I mentioned, 94% of them are imported, and displace that by particularly working on products like mahi-mahi that are really difficult to farm raise, and red snapper and others that we talked about that might have issues with mercury, that command a premium pricing, and so forth. And again, we're quite excited by the fact that our products would be 100% usable. We talk to chefs, they go, oh my God, no bones. So this is really something for the kitchen that is currently quite a challenge, that we're offering a full fillet with no bones, no heads, no tails, no shells either. That's 100% usable, certainly a bit different, but again, we're offering a number of benefits like no mercury, no environmental pollutants, no microplastics, and so forth. We're also quite confident our products have a much longer shelf life too, because they don't actually come with any bacterial contamination that might be normal in a traditional seafood product. So here's the kind of things we're working on: mahi, yellowtail, red snapper, tuna, other products, and we're even interested in Japanese eel for certain populations where that might be really relevant. So we're quite excited by the opportunity that this represents. And we've also quite motivated by some third-party studies. So A.T. Kearney, the national accounting firm, recently indicated that, quote, slaughter-free is the future. They're suggesting that by 2040, 60% of meat products consumed globally will be what's called cultured or cell-based or plant-based. They're predicting, and they're even saying move over, Impossible Burger, lab-grown meat will overtake plants by 2040. So they're representing this by this graphic. They're suggesting in the year 2025, so just 5 years from now, conventional meat will be roughly 90% of the meat that we consume globally, and plant-based, like the Impossible and Beyond product, will be 10%. But if you look out the next 15 years till the year 2040, they're suggesting that you'll see a 41% growth in the cell-based culture meat that I'm describing, to end up with 35% of total global meat consumption. 25% will be the plant-based products, and only 40%, so a reduction of 3% per year, will be the current conventional meat products. So we're in the middle of a global transformation that's made possible because of advances in technology and consumers' desire to really reduce their meat consumption overall. So this is the BlueNalu story, but today and tonight we're really here to talk about what all of us can do as a community to really support these kinds of goals. And in the case of BlueNalu, we're quite excited. We really early on recognized that the United Nations developed Sustainable Development Goals just a few years ago, in which they're asking all nations around the world to really participate. What can you all do? There's in fact 17 different goals. And BlueNalu is quite excited to really be part of 10 different ones, because what we're doing is really contributing to zero hunger, good health and well-being, higher paying jobs, decent work and economic growth, supporting climate action and other areas. But we're particularly focused on what you see here is number 14. Number 14 is life below water. And what we're really doing is making our effort to contribute towards the conservation and sustainable use of our oceans, keeping fish in the oceans for all of us to enjoy, and preserving that biodiversity around the world. This is our contribution at BlueNalu, and we're excited. It was actually born here at this event just a couple years ago, and we're quite excited to really talk about kind of what we all can do as a community, again, to make our own differences. So I want to thank you for your time, and I next want to introduce Greg Murphy and our esteemed panel that will be really talking about what all of us can do towards making this difference in sustainability for our future and for oceans. Thank you.